Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Dungeon Anthology on RiotRadio.ca. I'm your host, Nathan Arsenault, and welcome to today's episode, It Came from the Underdark, written by Tanner Smith. For those unfamiliar and uninitiated with our show, Dungeon Anthology is a series of disconnected stories written and voice acted by my friends and I. Now, before we get to the show, let's introduce our amazing actors and the characters they will be playing in today's episode.
Hello, I'm Bryn Baker, and today I'll be playing the role of Spruce Carrington, a half-elf paladin who, after taking an oath to redeem herself from her violent and mysterious past, now travels the land working righteously to help those in need.
Hi, I'm Zaid, and I will be playing the part of Underbite, a dark elf or drow rogue. Underbite is someone whose moral compass is dictated mostly by how much coin is in one's pocket and how much of that coin they're willing to pay him.
Once again, I'm Nathan Arsenault. I will be playing the role of Dexter Mullen, a human wizard. Although Dexter's goals for this particular adventure align with the group, they have a secret agenda of their own, and possibly even some sinister secrets.
And I am Tanner Smith, and today I will be your narrator as I take you and our lovely cast on a journey through this episode of Dungeon Anthology. It Came from the Underdark. Across the northwestern part of the land of Faerun stretches the spine of the world, a region of mountainous terrain that penetrates into the clouds, with valleys and gullies that stretch far into the earth, overlooked by steep cliff faces and hiding many intricate cave systems. This is where our story begins, as Spruce Carrington, a righteous half-elf, and his shifty drow companion, Underbite, stand before a tunnel into one of those cave systems, the wind howling behind them as they prepare to step into the dark, gaping maw of the unknown.
I don't see why you're risking your neck to fight a bunch of cave-dwelling hyena folk.
We're out here hunting down this pack of gnolls because if we don't, they'll keep terrorizing the people traveling the only trade route between Icewind Dale and the rest of Faerun. Illuminaire.
As Spruce and Underbite enter the cave, Spruce draws her sword, casting a light spell on the blade to illuminate the darkness, the pair's footsteps echoing off of the stone ground beneath them.
These caves seem to stretch and twist for many miles.
Yeah, one wrong turn or one bad step and you could find yourself taking a one-way trip to the Underdark.
Then we better watch our step in here.
Spending hours in the winding and twisting system of tunnels and caves, eventually Spruce and Underbite find themselves standing before a fork in their path. 3 ways to go stand before them. One tunnel to the middle, one to the left, and one to the right.
Left.
Right.
Left.
Right.
All good adventurers go left first. We are going left.
I was hired by you to be your navigator, and as your navigator, I say we go right first.
Respectfully, I believe the golden rule of adventuring overrules.
The debate over which path to take was cut short as they heard, from the middle tunnel, the hyena-like laughter of a pack of gnolls.
Middle.
Middle, let's go.
Spruce and Underbite run down the middle tunnel, their footsteps almost drowned out by the laughter. They soon find themselves entering out into a large room, stalagmites hanging down from the tall cavernous ceiling, with the occasional drop of water dripping from the cave roof. The walls were lined with shoddily made torches, and the gnolls they were hunting. A pack of 8 sat on the wood crates scattered about the room and feasted on the meat and fruit, basking in the stolen goods they had acquired from their larceny. Quickly, before they were spotted, Spruce and Underbite hid behind an unoccupied crate, spying on the gnolls.
4, 5, 6, 8. 8 gnolls. More than I expected, but we should be able to take them all.
Spruce, look over there.
Looking across the room to where Enderbite was pointing, Spruce would take notice of another, smaller cavern being guarded by 2 more gnolls.
It looks to me like there's something important over there.
And you want to go check it out?
I want to go check it out.
Very well then, I shall distract the gnolls for you.
Distract?
Suddenly leaping from her hiding spot, Spruce shouts,
By my righteous hands, I will smite you beasts and stop your attacks on the innocent travelers and traders.
All of the gnolls, clearly caught by surprise, begin scrambling for their weapons, giving Enderbite the opportunity he needed to slip by and investigate the cavern.
Good distraction, Spruce.
With great dexterity, Enderbite sneaks past the ensuing combat and into the smaller cavern the gnolls were guarding. Stepping in, he sees a human in dirty red robes tied up against the wall, as well as an old leather-bound book laying beside him.
Hey, you! Help me out here.
I could, but first tell me, why would some hyena folk just tie you up and leave you here? That isn't their usual modus operandi.
I don't know. I was just minding my own business, making my way to Icewind Dale, when they came out of nowhere and kidnapped me.
And what do we have here?
Hey, don't touch that. Put that down.
Ignoring the man, Enderbite grabbed the book. Flipping through the pages, he quickly came to realize.
Oh, you're a wizard. And a very powerful one too, from the look of these spells. These hyena folk must have gotten really lucky to have caught you off guard. Now.
Unsheathing his dagger, Enderbite leaned down to meet the wizard face to face.
Who are you? Why are the gnolls keeping you alive? And what's in it for us if I free you, wizard?
Fine. My name is Dexter Mullen, and I'm a very powerful wizard, as you've clearly and oh so expertly deduced. The gnolls did catch me off guard after I'd set up camp, and a few nights ago. But they realized my arcane arts could be useful for them. To put me simply, they want me to open a door.
Open a door? Why? What's behind the door?
Your guess is as good as mine. Though, from what I've gathered from listening to the gnolls, behind the door may be a dungeon of some kind, commissioned by a powerful being long ago to hide this trove of gold and weapons he acquired. Some of them, I heard, were magical, too.
All right, you've convinced me. I'll free you, and in return you'll help me and my companion get rid of these gnolls and find this trove of treasure.
Yes, deal. Now free me, drow.
Enderbite. My name is Enderbite.
With a swift motion, Enderbite's knife cut through the rope and freed Dexter, the wizard. Collecting his book, Dexter stood up, and with a nod between them, the two quickly went to join Spruce in battle against the gnolls. Meanwhile...
Ha! Is that all you've got? I've fought rats worse than you.
Though a few gnolls lay defeated on the floor, most of them still stood in battle against Spruce. By this point, she was bloodied, and the combat was beginning to become overwhelming. "You speak of great confidence," the largest of the gnolls, clearly the leader of the pack, said. "Surrounded and alone, but still you have lots of fight, even when at death's door. I almost respect it."
It is rare my enemies compliment me, and even rarer that I return the settlement. I thank you for such. However, you have not earned my respect.
From behind the pack of gnolls, Spruce could see her drow companion accompanied by another person, a human, sneaking back from the smaller cavern. Enderbite quietly dispatched 2 of the gnolls at the back of the pack, as the human meanwhile began preparing a spell in his hands.
Perhaps after the odds are evened out, you may even earn a chance to gain my respect.
Fulgur.
The heads of the remaining gnolls quickly turned as a bolt of lightning arced from the wizard's hands, hitting the pack. In mere seconds, the remaining gnolls fell to the ground defeated.
Well, that was a little anticlimactic. However, I am glad the null problem is solved. I did want to fight that large one, though. So tell me, who are you?
Unimportant.
His name is Dexter.
Ah, I see. I am Spruce Carrington. Now, pray tell, what caused you to end up a prisoner of these gnolls?
I am a wizard. They wanted my magic to aid them.
Yeah, to open a door.
Oh?
Something about a dungeon here with gold weapons and magical items.
Oh my.
The gnolls were taking me to the entrance of this dungeon. They intended to use my magic to open the door so that they could claim the spoils for themselves.
Think of the spoils we could earn for ourselves.
All the gold that could aid in fortifying nearby towns and villages, or ancient relics that could be donated to colleges for archaeological and historical study.
Yeah, towns and colleges. Maybe a little for ourselves?
Yes, Underbite, there will be a little that we will take for ourselves.
I believe standing here, fantasizing about what we do with the gold is wasting precious time. Time that would be better spent finding this dungeon.
Agreed. However, where should we start our search? The spine of the world is quite large, and not all of the cave systems have been fully charted yet.
I have a good idea of where to go. Follow me.
Quickly taking charge, Dexter began to lead the group through the intricate system of caves and tunnels. As the three walked, they would notice the caves around them changing. The dark walls and floors of the cave began to illuminate with strange moss and blue mushrooms.
If I didn't know any better, it would seem like we were being led
Towards the Underdark. Yeah, I'm quite familiar with the moss around us. Starting to think there isn't any door.
Suddenly before them was a tall stone door embedded into the wall of the cave. There was a strange, intricate pattern carved on the door, and the center had a strange symbol, though none of them could clearly make out exactly what the symbol was, or the danger it warned of.
So, how do we open the door?
Step back and give me a moment. I have a spell for this.
Very well then.
Dexter stepped up to the door and began muttering a strange incantation, a string of words, while tracing his finger in the air in front of the door. In a matter of minutes, it began to glow this dim orange light.
Cover your ears.
All right.
Why?
Because when I say kaboom, that's why.
I was expecting a more subtle approach to getting this thing open.
I don't do subtlety. Instead, I choose the path of least resistance.
As the group stepped beyond the rubble of the door, they found the dungeon that they walked into strange. The deeper into the maze of a dungeon they went, the more the walls around them changed, becoming more foreign and unfamiliar to them. Moss-covered stone walls becoming purple and black hallways. The glowing blue mushrooms slowly phased out for these strange white orbs that embedded into the walls, and were lighting the way deeper and deeper they went into the strange dungeon.
Tell me, Enderbite, you hail from the Underdark originally.
Yes.
What is this strange foliage that illuminates our path?
I don't know. Doesn't look like anything I've ever seen from the Underdark.
Interesting. If it's not from the Underdark, then what is it?
As they pondered the question, they stepped out of the narrow corridor and into a large room. It was nothing like they had ever seen before. The walls and ceiling, even the floor they stepped on, had transitioned into some strange melding of stone and what felt like flesh. In the center of the room was a basin filled almost to the brim with gold, but something else stood out to them. Across the room there was a strange device protruding from the ground, and curiosity began to take hold of Dexter. While the others were examining the pile of gold, he approached the device.
There's enough gold here to make Tiamat herself jealous.
Do you have the bag of holding ready?
Yup. Hey, Dexter, come over here and get yourself some of this gold before we begin shoving it into our bag. Dexter?
Reaching out to touch the device, he could see something inside of it, something humanoid. Suddenly, Dexter was shunted back as if hit by some invisible wall of force. The device, a pod, bursted open, and this awful creature stepped out. Its body was tall and slender, with a face like that of an octopus or a squid. It spoke in this strange language that none of them could understand, and trying to comprehend the sound of its speech, it was enough to make one's mind begin to ache.
What is that thing? I've never seen anything like it.
Can't be. I've only read legends and lore about these creatures. Oppressive monsters that come from a realm far beyond what we know, with strange powers and motivations unknown to even the most educated of scholars. That is a mind flayer.
Mind flare?
I've heard of these things. They're pure evil. They nearly enslaved half of the Underdark once a long time ago, but I thought they had all died out.
Clearly not.
Let us change that then. Hi-ya!
Spruce's sword began glowing with divine energy, and suddenly, without warning, she lunged at the Mind Flayer, landing a direct hit on the creature, though it seemed to have little effect, as the next thing she realized, she was lifted into the air by some invisible force, and with a flick of the Mind Flayer's wrist, was thrown into a pile of gold.
All right, how about this?
Quickly flipping through his book, Dexter spoke an incantation and inhaled. Exhaling with a dragon's breath spell, a ball of acid fired from the wizard's mouth, directly hitting the Mind Flayer. They watched as it ate at its skin, though only for a moment before the spell evaporated.
New plan. Tactical retreat.
I agree.
While the group retreated, the Mind Flayer started levitating off the ground and began pursuing them.
It flies now?
We have to stop it. Who knows what would happen if that thing were to make its way to civilization? With abilities like that, it could decimate entire towns in mere days.
How do we do that? It nearly took you out with a single attack, and some of my best spells barely slowed it down.
If that is the case, we must trap it. Dexter, what about that spell you used to get us in here? Could you use it to cave in the exit?
I could, but it would take a few minutes to set up the glyphs.
Then we'll simply have to buy you some time. Come on, Spruce.
Suddenly, Enderbite disappeared into the shadows as Spruce stood stoic between the Mind Flayer and the rest of the corridor leading to where they came in. Meanwhile, Dexter began setting up glyphs to trap the creature in.
Take this, monster!
With that same divine light as before, Spruce swung at the Mind Flayer. Enderbite, playing to his strengths, quickly moved from the shadows to sneak attack the creature with his dagger. Though their attack seemed to have done little to harm the Mind Flayer, it was slowing it down. The two were suddenly grabbed, however, by the psychic powers that the Mind Flayer possessed, freezing them in place. They could feel the concentrating gaze of the alien monster, as they could feel it beginning to probe their minds. The pain that bore into their skulls was awful.
Well, it was fun while it lasted.
Let's just hope that our sacrifice will not be in vain.
Suddenly, before the Mind Flayer could do anything, a small drop of water fell between them and began to expand out into a wall of water. The Mind Flayer let its psychic grasp go as Spruce and Enderbite would see a ray of frost hit the water wall, freezing it solid, although the Mind Flayer already began to try and break the ice.
The Mind Flayer should really chill out.
Dexter, I'm guessing you have the glyph set up?
Yep, let's go.
Yes, let's.
You don't have to tell me twice.
The three ran as the ice wall shattered and the Mind Flayer continued to make its chase. As they ran, Dexter turned back to face the Mind Flayer, saying,
Kaboom.
The tunnel they were all in started to rumble and shake. The glyphs Dexter had set up began glowing before one by one they exploded, stopping the Mind Flayer in its tracks as rocks began filling up the tunnel between it and the group. Barely making it, they jumped out of the tunnel and back into the cave, where they started looking back as it shook. For a minute, everyone held their breaths as the caves began to settle.
Is it over?
It would seem so.
Oh, well, that's good.
Well, if that's it, see ya.
Dexter, wait.
What is it?
I wanted to thank you for coming back to save us after you had set up the glyphs. I wouldn't have expected such thing from a Thyan.
And what makes you think I'm a Thayan?
A wizard in red robes with a book of powerful spells. It doesn't take much deducting to realize your true identity, especially when you don't try to hide it that well.
I also saw your red Wizard of Thay symbol on the first page in your book.
It was a noble and selfless act to save us. Despite the fact that you could have left us there buried alive with the Mind Flayer, you have my respect and my thanks.
Well, the gratitude is appreciated. Before we part ways, where are you two headed?
After we get our reward from for the hyena folk problem you helped us solve, we're headed to Icewind Dale.
You don't say. I planned on venturing there myself. Perhaps our paths will cross again in the tundra, then.
If that is what fate deems, perhaps it will. I bid you farewell, Dexter.
And safe travels to you as well, Spruce and Enderbites.
With the gnolls defeated and the Mind Flayer trapped once more, Spruce and Enderbite part ways with Dexter, though with the knowledge that both parties may meet again one day in the near future in Icewind Dale.
And with that, we conclude our adventure in today's episode, It Came from the Underdark. I would like to thank Bryn Baker, Zaid Cathcart, and Tanner Smith for lending their voices to today's episode. You can find our show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok under the name Dungeon Anthology. I am Nathan Arsenault, and this has been Dungeon Anthology on riotradio.ca. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.